The LG C3. It's a great TV, has a ton of positive reviews, solid price, especially if you can find it on sale or open box, and some really great features making it an outstanding value. But is it a viable option to use for work? Let's talk about it. So not going to go too deep into the specs or anything like that. You can find that up here in the original video. This is going to be more of my past 4 months owning this thing, some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way, and if it was a good purchase overall. First things first, 42 inches is big, but I don't think it's too big. Working on it is fine. I got used to it pretty quick. Would I game on it at this distance? Probably not, with a keyboard and mouse at least. But for work, it's great. One thing I have changed since the original video is I spent like 2 minutes talking about fancy zones. I don't even use it anymore. I just resize my windows to however I need them set up, move them around as need be. The best way I can explain it is kind of like when you see people doing productivity work on like the Apple Vision Pro or a VR headset. I just kind of move things around and resize windows so it's at the optimal size for whatever I'm working on in that moment, and then when I'm working on a full screen application, it's full screen. One thing you have to realize is you're not really focusing on an entire screen at once anyway when working. It's not like gaming where you're trying to get all the input from the entire screen at once. One thing you do need to take into consideration though is the height and the depth that you are away from the screen. I have a 30-inch desk, and I would say this is probably the closest you would want to be. I did have a 24-inch desk when I bought this TV, and it did feel like I was getting a little bit too close for comfort. So if you do have like a 24-inch desk, like one of those really popular IKEA ones, just take that into consideration. You might want to figure out a way to either pull your desk out and mount it to the wall, or just get a new desk overall. And while we're talking about desk size, the screen itself is 36 inches, but the feet are 28 inches apart. I don't think many people have smaller than a 28-inch desk anyway, but it is something to take into consideration when you start thinking about putting accessories on your desk, like speakers. For example, the way I have mine set up right now, my desk is 60 inches wide, and I just have enough room to be able to fit the speakers on either end of the TV due to the desk shelf that it's sitting on. And the reason I bring that desk shelf up is if you're going to use this TV as a monitor, I would really recommend you do a heavy-duty monitor arm or a desk shelf like this. The feet only elevate the TV about 2 inches off the surface that it's sitting on, so you really don't want to be using that directly on the desk. I would highly recommend getting something to elevate the monitor and factor that into your budget if that's the route you're going to go. One thing I did change in that regard from the last video is I got rid of that monitor stand. It was just way too sketchy. It was rated up to 22 pounds, which this TV is exactly 22 pounds, and it was wobbling around way too much. I had to get rid of it. So overall for size, when talking productivity, 42 inches I think is a really great size. Just make sure you have the proper desk space and the proper elevation when setting this thing up. Now, the biggest concern aside from the size when I was purchasing this TV was the fact that it's OLED. Overall, it's been a great experience for me. I don't plan on going back anytime soon, but there are some downsides to this thing being OLED that could play a factor in whether or not you should buy this or not. First is something I mentioned in the original video, but it's the ABL kicking in. It's pretty responsive to a bright screen, so if like half my screen I'm playing a video and the other half I'm editing a photo, the photo will kind of flash as to the brightness of the video. Not a huge deal for me. My way around that is just making the window that the video is playing in small enough that it doesn't activate that ABL. Personally, that's not something I would really recommend messing around with anyway, because the whole reason for ABL is to increase the longevity and decrease the degradation of the pixels on your panel, aka push off how long that burn-in is going to happen for. So if you are somebody that tends to work within 2 windows all day and you don't want that ABL to be super aggressive and affect the other window, I would either go with a monitor that has a less aggressive ABL or maybe not even an OLED at all, so you don't have to worry about that. Second issue, this screen is glossy. Like when I'm sitting here throughout the day, the door to my living room is behind me and I can see clear as day as if there's a mirror in front of me what's going on in there. If the way your house is set up, the way your room is set up is that you're going to have a window behind you or some bright lights, that's going to become very distracting very quickly. The alternative to this would just be going with a monitor with a matte coating on it. But even with the screen brightness turned up to 100%, if you have a really bright window or a really bright light behind you, it's definitely going to cause some glare on this thing. And last issue on the OLED side of things is text fringing. This is due to the subpixel layout that OLEDs use. You'll start to see some colors around the text, or it'll start being fringy. It's not horrible on this TV. It's way worse on my G9 OLED over there. And it's not super noticeable to me, but I'm not staring at text all day. If you're somebody that works on a lot of documents or you do a lot of reading throughout the day, you're definitely going to notice it, and it can definitely become a headache. One thing that does catch my eye every time is yellow text in particular tends to be a little bit more fringed than white text on a black background, or vice versa for some reason. This is a problem you're going to run into with most OLEDs out there. I know that new Asus 32-inch 4K, it doesn't have have that bad of a text fringing, so maybe that's worth taking a look at. But aside from that, most other OLEDs, you're going to have some text fringing, so I would just try to stay away from OLED in general anyway if you do a lot of document reading. For the average user, I don't think you're going to notice it that much. And last thing I want to cover is the fact that this is a TV, not a monitor. I know I keep calling it a monitor, that's what I look as it as because that's what I use it as, but it's a TV, that's what it was made to do. There's no display port option. The HDMI ports are on the left side of the TV. I know this might seem like a minor convenience, but I know a lot of people put their PC on the right side of their desk. So remember to factor in that you're going to need about an extra foot or two of HDMI cable to reach that far side of the TV. And it's not going to automatically turn on right away when you turn your PC on. You're going to have to use the remote to turn it on and select the input. I can see why people find this to be a problem. Personally, that doesn't matter to me. It's like 2 buttons. There is a workaround for this that somebody commented in the last video. I'll drop it up here. I haven't tried it yet because like it's not even worth my time to download that software, whatever it is. But one thing I will mention when selecting the input is on the TV itself, on that home screen, when you first turn it on, go into Home Hub. And within there, you can select the 3 dots in the top right corner, then select Edit Inputs. And if you are using this with a PC, switch your HDMI 1 or 2, whatever the PC is plugged into, to the little PC icon. I was experiencing some issues with the screen flickering every once in a while, but once I switched my input to PC, everything worked fine. But yeah, at the end of the day, it is made to be a TV, so there are some tiny little minor inconveniences you have to think about that a monitor would have that this doesn't, but if I'm being completely honest, they're nitpicky things. But again, just take into consideration what you do for work and how it could affect you with the things that I mentioned. So that's how productivity's been on this thing. It's been great. Gaming, I have nothing to say. It's been absolutely amazing for gaming. The way this is integrated into the PS5, it feels almost as like this thing was made to be an accessory to the console rather than made to be a TV that you can plug a console into. I have not made one single change to the video settings. It switches over immediately to game mode and everything looks stunning. One thing I have changed on the PS5 side of things is when I would turn the TV off, it would put my PlayStation into rest mode, and I tend to turn the TV off quite often when I get up to get a drink of water or go to the bathroom, and so that was getting kind of annoying, so I just turned that off. And if you have something like a PlayStation Portal that you're using for remote play, I would definitely turn off the feature where if you turn on the PlayStation, the TV turns on. Otherwise, every time you turn on your PlayStation Portal, the TV is going to turn on. Not a great idea for an OLED. But other than that, gaming's been awesome. I have nothing to say about it. It's been the smoothest experience. But that's the LG C3. Highly recommend for console gamers. Can definitely recommend for productivity work as long as one of those issues that I mentioned isn't going to be a huge hindrance to you. And overall, a really solid TV. But otherwise, that's going to be it for today. I don't really feel the need to go too deep into settings or anything like that like I had to with the G9. And I think that's just a testament to how great this TV is. It just works, and it works really well. Really appreciate you guys for watching. If you have any questions, comments, constructive criticisms, let me know down below. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.